Reductio ad absurdum, the suspended fetus thought experiment. Here's a premise. Pro-life substance view. Every living human organism from conception onward possesses full moral status and a right to life, regardless of its developmental stage or viability. The hypothetical scenario, a fetus stopped developing at 18 weeks gestation. It has remained in a suspended state for 2 years. It is not dead, but it is not growing, not sentient, and not viable. It is biologically human, alive, and unique. Reductio structure. 1. Assume the pro-life premise is true. The suspended fetus has full moral status and a right to life. 2. Then it follows that it must be protected as a person. Any removal or termination would be equivalent to murder. The host, pregnant person, must continue to carry it indefinitely, even if it never resumes development. 3. But this leads to absurd consequences. The host becomes a permanent life support system for a being that may never develop consciousness, viability, or personhood traits. There is no time-bound limit to this obligation. Potentially decades of physical and psychological burden. The fetus has no interests, no capacity for suffering, no relational ties, and no trajectory towards personhood, yet it is treated as morally equivalent to a newborn. 4. The moral status assigned by the substance view detaches entirely from functional, relational, or developmental realities. It demands infinite obligation for a being that may never become a person. This contradicts widely held intuitions about moral responsibility, proportionality, and bodily autonomy. Again, if the pro-life view requires indefinite preservation of a suspended, non-developing fetus as a moral equal to a child, then the view collapses into absurdity, demanding infinite sacrifice for a being with no interests, no trajectory, and no capacity for suffering or flourishing. Rebuttal ladder, escaping the suspended fetus trap. Rung 1, it's still human, so it has rights. Claim, the fetus is biologically human and alive, therefore it has full moral status. Counter, so does a brain-dead body on life support. Mere biological humanness doesn't entail personhood or moral priority. If development is permanently suspended, there's no trajectory towards sentience, agency, or interests. Collapse. This view demands infinite obligation for a being with no capacity for suffering or flourishing. Okay, rung 2. It has potential. Claim. The fetus might resume development someday. Its potential gives it moral worth. Counter. Potential is not actuality. A frozen embryo or a seed has potential too, but we don't treat them as moral equals to children. If moral status hinges on potential alone, then every sperm-egg pair is sacred. Collapse leads to absurd obligations toward all latent biological possibilities. Okay, rung 3. We don't know enough. Err on the side of life. Claim. Since we can't be sure the fetus won't resume development, we must preserve it. Counter. This is moral Pascal's wager, sacrificing real autonomy and well-being for a hypothetical future. It's not ethically sustainable to demand indefinite sacrifice for epistemic uncertainty. Collapse turns moral reasoning into superstition-driven paralysis. Okay, rung 4. It's a unique, non-repeatable entity. Claim. Its uniqueness makes it morally irreplaceable. Counter. So is every skin cell, every gamete. Uniqueness is not a sufficient condition for personhood or rights. Moral status must be tied to interests, capacities, or relationships, not mere irreplaceability. Collapse leads to moral inflation of trivial biological entities. Okay, rung 5. Killing it is still wrong. Claim. Even if it's not developing, actively ending its life is morally wrong. Counter. Is removing life support from a permanently comatose patient wrong? If the fetus has no interests, no sentience, and no trajectory, then ending its biological activity is not morally equivalent to killing a person. Collapse confuses biological activity with moral life. Okay, rung 6. The host has a duty to carry it. Claim. The pregnant person has a moral obligation to sustain the fetus. Counter. For how long? Decades? Forever? This collapses bodily autonomy and turns the host into a permanent incubator for a being that may never become sentient. It's a form of moral slavery. Collapse violates proportionality, autonomy, and human dignity. Okay, final diagnosis. Each rung of the ladder tries to escape the suspended fetus trap, but all collapse into absurdity, infinite obligation, or moral inflation. The thought experiment exposes the incoherence of assigning full moral status based solely on humanness, potential, or uniqueness.